Chad, you were acquitted after years of fighting the federal government. Take us back to that phone call you received when you were driving home that changed everything for you.
Yeah, I think it was a Wednesday. I was driving home and completely out of the blue that I received this call, because it wasn't like we got like a heads up, man, something's coming down. And this investigation that the feds were doing, where I had already been named as a subject, had stalled, and it had been over a year and we had not heard anything. So we're thinking that it's probably just going to drift off. We'll end up getting a notification that the case has been rejected, blah, 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 blah. So that was our mindset. And when my phone rings and it says Michael Schwartz, it's like, what do you want? Hey, what's up, Michael? Hey, Chad, what are you doing right now? Where are you? I said, I'm driving home, just got off on the exit. And he goes, okay, call me when you get home. Oh, no, we're going to, what? I'm just driving along. And he goes, I'd really rather you call me when I get home. And I'm like, no, seriously, Michael, tell me now, what's up? He goes, hey, you were indicted. And I'm kind of like, I speak English. I know what indictment means and I understand what you're saying, but it's not registering with me at the depth of what he's telling me. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good, I guess. Let me call you when I get home. So then as I had probably 2 or 3 minutes more before I pulled in the driveway, and then it all sunk in. And I remember walking through the garage door, out of the garage into the house. I walk up, I make a right turn, and I kind of just sit down on the floor against the coat closet door. And everything just came, all this stuff, all your emotion just comes. Every worst nightmare that you could think of has just come to fruition in your face. So it wasn't like, oh, well, there's a chance that that's a misunderstanding. No, you've been indicted. So that means arrest. That means booking, fingerprints, arraignment, the whole 9 yards. And when you start stacking those chips up, that's when it really gets heavy. And then my wife comes in, my daughter comes in, my son comes in, and then it's just an emotional train wreck. For 5 minutes, gather our composure, call Michael back. And that's when he says those words that tomorrow is going to be the worst day of your life. Hands down. And I was like, I didn't really think it would be that bad, but it was. Yeah, it was.
I'm Steve Murphy, DEA Special Agent retired and now host of the Game of Crimes podcast. If you've seen the Netflix series Narcos, then you know my story. I now bring you stories of heroism and bravery from our law enforcement and military heroes, and occasionally from the criminals that they faced. Welcome to Game of Crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this week's edition of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. This is one that this interview this week is tugs at my heart because of what a brother officer had to go through needlessly, being falsely accused by some overzealous agents that had no business carrying a badge for any agency. And that's Murph's opinion. But when you read this man's book, I think you'll probably agree with me 100%. But our guest this week is a 24-year veteran of the Pomona, California Police Department. Pomona's on the east side of L.A. It's part of the metro L.A. area there. He worked patrol. He was a field training officer. He was on the SWAT team. He worked narcotics for a short amount of time. He was involved in community policing, recruiting, reaching out to the youth of the community. That's what cops are supposed to do, right? Yeah. He's a highly decorated officer in the police department there, and he was even selected as Officer of the Year one year. That's the highest award you can get within the agency. He's now a public speaker. He's an advocate for law enforcement. He addresses federal accountability, and you're going to understand fully what that means by the time we finish this interview. And he's just authored a book called Badge Under Fire, A Fight for the Truth. Here you can see it on the screen if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're not watching us on YouTube, go over and watch us on YouTube and subscribe to the Game of Crimes podcast. And that's a cheesy commercial for you. But this book just came out March of 2026, so it's relatively new out on the market. But our guest is Chad Jensen. Chad, welcome to Game of Crimes, brother.
Happy to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Man, and let me just say right up front here, I feel so bad for all the crap that you went through, for all the false accusations. I think there's other people that should have gone to jail behind all of this, but we're going to get into that, and our listeners will understand more about that. But no man or woman who's brave enough to put on a uniform to go out and protect people that they don't even know, and even to the point of sometimes having to give your life for that or serious injury, nobody should have to go through that crap that you've gone through.
I agree. Well stated, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm going to be going off on tangents, I think, for today and tomorrow. So hang in there with me, okay?
Gotcha. No problem.
How we met was we have a mutual friend, and you guys have heard me talk about this man before, Patrick O'Donnell. He's the host of Cops and Writers podcast, one of my very, very good friends. He's a retired Milwaukee police officer. He's been here on the Game of Crimes a couple times. Prolific author. I mean, he's got buttloads of book out there if you're into reading law enforcement. He's got some really funny ones out there that you want to take a look at. So, Patrick, brother, thank you so much once again for introducing me to Chad here. Now, Chad, in the research I was doing on it, it seems like you don't talk much about your life before the badge. So just tell us, who was Chad Jensen before Pomona PD?
Yeah, I don't talk about it. I go in Badge Under Fire. That's one of the things that I wanted to do in this book, is kind of do a little character development, if you will. So like, hey, this is the background. I was born and raised in Southern California, quintessential Southern California experience, but I was a child of divorced parents. So we played the back and forth game all the time. I started actually, first job I think I got was I was a bus boy at like 14 and just kind of worked up from there. And then, just things. It's an incredible story of just getting to be a cop, because I didn't become a cop till I was 30 years old. So like I said in the book here, I had made several decisions in my early 20s, late teens and early 20s, that precluded me from making big boy decisions, if you will, because I was too busy either getting married to the wrong person or having more kids. I mean, I was caught in this bad cycle. But then at 30 years old, I was able to finally make my dream come true and become a police officer. And that's what I wanted to do.
Got it. So when you were growing up, what kind of kid were you? Were you the athlete? Were you the kid in the library? Were you the troublemaker? Were you in fighting? What were you doing?
No, I'm a Pisces. I'm a lover, not a fighter, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, I kind of bounced around a lot. I mean, I probably went to like 6 or 7 different elementary schools. High school, I went to like 5 different high schools. So I always had an ability to make friends, because when you bounce around that much, you got to make friends. So, no, I was a lot of a jokester. To me, a laugh is worth a laugh, whatever the cost. Didn't serve me well in the academy, but, or my partners in the academy, but we had a great time. And to me, life just wasn't that serious. And I did play sports. So I played football, baseball, stuff like that, Little League. Once we got into high school, I played football all 4 years, but I wasn't a D1 athlete by any stretch of the imagination. Did it because you got to wear your jersey on Friday and chicks dig it. And I'll be honest, that was the driving force behind that. But yeah. And I enjoyed surfing when I lived over in the Monterey Bay Area with my mom, my junior and senior year in high school. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's and you do go into a lot of detail in your book to give everybody a good idea. But just tell us all how you initially became interested in law enforcement and how old you were.
A couple of things. There's two like snapshots in your memory. As you get older, the video slows down, and all of a sudden now you just get pictures. So when I was probably 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, I'm with my best friend Nick at the time, and we're skateboarding down the foothills in Monrovia, which is another East LA city there, and we're skateboarding down the hill. And we're going right across Foothill Boulevard, which is like 2 lanes, main arterial roadway in eastern LA County. Tons of cars, completely dangerous, totally stupid, flying right through this intersection. Could have been killed, and just happened to be, there was a Monrovia police car just coming right towards us. So he pulls over to the curb. I remember him like chirping the siren. We get to the curb, and we're both scared like to death. And this officer gets out of the driver's seat, comes up, typical mid to late 70s cop with a big old dark caterpillar mustache, mirrored glasses, literally had a wheel gun on his side, and just comes walking up. I remember he had really hairy arms too. It's weird the things you remember, but I remember he had really hairy arms, and he walks up to us and he just says, "We both could have been killed," and blah blah blah. And then we're just shivering in our boots, and he says, "Well, I could have taken you to jail for this, blah, blah, blah." And well, we're really getting scared now. And then he just kind of cracks a smile. And he says, just get out of here, be safe, go home and tell your parents. Of course, we took off. We never said to our parents, we never said anything to anybody, but we just went home. And from that day forward, that was my number one. My number one was I wanted to be a police officer. That just made a big influence on me that day. And I have no family in law enforcement or military, none whatsoever. And it was either I wanted to be a police officer or a UPS guy. Weird. I know, not a lot of connection there, but that was what I wanted. I wanted to be a UPS guy or a cop. And then fast forward probably 10 years later, I'm a senior in high school, or maybe my junior year. And we take off. Me and my buddies get in my old 73 Super Beetle, primer gray, rusted out. It was a $300 car, right? So we would drive out and we're going to go to a nudie bookstore, right? We're like, because we're cool. We're going to go out to Seaside and go to this nudie bookstore. And we pull into the parking lot and we're like, dude, don't be a creep, man. We can't park in the parking lot. So we parked the pizza parlor next door. And of course, we don't see the big sign that says no parking, tow away and all that. So we go in there. We're not even in there 15 minutes. And like in the book, I tell this story. I'm like, we got totally creeped out, man. We're like, oh, this is disgusting. So we run out of there thinking we're going to jump in the car and take off. And it's freaking gone, man. So called the number on the sign from payphone. And he's like, yeah, we'll have an officer come out there. Officer comes out, says, yeah, it was impounded. It's $125 to get it back or whatever. And now it's nighttime. So the station's not open. So we can't get it out. So he's like, all right, man, we'll beat feet. It's 3 miles back to Monterey. He was a Seaside cop. So we start walking. We're walking along. And then in Monterey, there's a place called the Naval Postgraduate School. It's a military place for the higher ups in the Navy, I guess. Anyway, we're walking by there and there was a Monterey cop like backed in the driveway. And we're like, man, I'm going to talk to that guy, see if we can get a ride or something. Because it's funny how the public always thinks you're like a taxi. Can you get a ride somehow? So like a couple of knuckleheads, the three of us walk up there and I talked to the officer and I said, sir, my car got picked up. He goes, you guys are at that nudie bookstore, huh? And he laughed in our faces. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he said, hop in. So that was the first time in the back of a police car. And it was the full cage. I want to say it could have been a Dodge Diplomat, maybe. Was that mid 70s, right? Yeah. Probably, or 80s or whatever. It was just an old police car and had just the cage. No plexiglass, was just the cage, right? That's how old it was. And I remember looking through there and he had the police radio and it's nighttime. So there's all these different lights and stuff going on. And just, wow, the crackle of the radio and it spoke to me, man. It was like a religious experience. You know what I mean? And I was like, I'm sold. This is what I want to do. But then of course, life gets in the way of your dreams and your poor decisions make it hard for your dreams to come true. So he dropped us off. He was really cool about it. And my grandpa loaned me $125 to get my car back. And so it was crazy. It was a good time, but that just solidified it. And then later on in my career, I was a manager at Food for Less there in Pomona. And there was a couple of really awesome cops that came in. One particular was JT Garcia. He was a cop there in Pomona. Just a good man, just a good person. And he'd come in and like I'd stop shoplifters and stuff like that. And he'd come in and write them tickets or take them to jail for whatever. And it just was like, okay, I think this is what I want to do. So,
yeah. Did you think of any other agencies besides Pomona? That's the only one you applied for?
Yeah. Actually, unfortunately, I had your skin is your sin for white people too, because in the 90s, there's this thing called affirmative action. I don't know if they had that on the East Coast or if it was just California nonsense, but it was affirmative action. So, and for a guy, white male in his late 20s to get a job for the government, let alone the police department, that's tough. You're with two hands behind your back and one leg. So, I applied probably a dozen agencies, the shotgun effect, right? Like I'm just going to put it out there as many places as I could. Luckily, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department there in Southern California was putting on a reserve academy, right? So you can go and do an academy, but it's spread over 12 months, right? And you're going 3 nights a week for 4 hours a night or whatever. And that way you can decide, being a reserve, obviously you're not getting paid, but you can decide like, yes, this is the job I wanted. So I went to that academy, did that year, ended up getting my basic post certificate, and then got on with Riverside Police Department as a reserve. And then you ride out once a week or once every couple of weeks with the officer, and you're uniformed. You have all the same powers as a regular police officer. You're just not getting paid. So, and once I did that and that sunk in, I was like, okay, yeah, now I can do this. And my wife at the time was, had a good job as a nurse. Therefore, I was able to quit my job because at the time I was working for PepsiCo Frito-Lay. So I was a truck driver for them. And that's a very lucrative company to work for. They have very good benefits, stock options, pay was excellent, especially for the 90s. And so for me to leave that was a tough call, but I ended up doing it. And obviously I had a wonderful, awesome career. I mean, it was marked with this, but every career, I mean, if you were a plumber, you could have had a bad incident, but it's overall, I mean, I had a great time and I worked with awesome people.
Yeah. So your first day at the academy, tell us about that. That's kind of funny.
Oh, my first day at the academy. Oh, there was I was lucky in the sense that there was 3 of us that got put into the academy from Pomona. Christine, Bill, and myself. Bill was a former Marine, and Christine was just a cool cat. You know, so the 3 of us had a really good time, but we show up on that first day and we're getting yelled at. I'm trying to remember it now. I just drew a blank.
You're just a little bit late getting there.
Oh yeah, no, that was my first day of training. That was my first day of training after the academy. Right. I had graduated the academy on Friday. I need to show up to the training center on Monday. Right. So this is brand new. I mean, you're going to do all your paperwork and everything like that. So yes, good one right here. So I'm living in, I think, Corona at the time. This is obviously in Pomona. So it's regularly would be about a 25-minute drive. But Southern California traffic, it turns into like 45, 50 minutes. And I'm going to get off on the exit to go northbound from Reservoir. And it's backed up forever, dude. It's backed up 2 miles. And I'm like, these people aren't important. I'm important. I got to get where I got to go because I'm going to get my ass beat. So there's 2 lanes going down the exit to get off, right? And then there's a dedicated lane to go right, northbound, and a dedicated lane to go southbound. And I'm like, I'm going to play the cool guy. I'm going to go down in the southbound lane. I'm going to turn northbound, right? People do it all the time. And so I get down to the bottom of the lane. I go to turn right. There's a freaking motor cop standing right in the middle of the road. Hands up. Even at his whistle, blows me over to the curb. And I come over there and I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for this guy to walk up, man. And then sure enough, he comes walking up, motor helmet, mustache, whole 9 yards. And he says, you can't do that, blah, 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 blah. The reason I stopped you, XYZ. Yes, sir. And I'm trembling and I have my license in my hand and my work ID because I got my Pomona police ID, right? So I was like, sir, you're not going to believe this, but I'm on my way to see Sergeant Johnson at the training center. Oh, really? What's your name? I said, Chad Jensen. He goes, oh, Jensen, huh? I've seen your name on the list, 3rd from the bottom. My name's Leonard, 3rd from the top. Like this. And I was like, oh man, all the sweat's coming off me. And he walks back to his motor and I'm thinking I'm cooked. I'm going to get fired my first day. Right. So he comes back up. He hands me my license and my ID, and he says, "Tell Sergeant Johnson that we talked." And that's it. Let me go drive up there. And then a whole long story in the book. I go the whole thing, talk to Sergeant Johnson, and oh man, they don't make cops like these guys anymore. They just don't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's a day to remember, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And then just all the nonsense that happened after that with Sergeant Gillespie coming in there like the Terminator. And it was just incredible. But
oh, it's a great way to start the book too. When you're starting off your police career, it's funny. I mean, I call it Murphy's Law.
Oh,
Murph,
of
right?
course it is. And then you can do one of two things. You can either, take the L and just be all downtrodden and just beat, or you lean into it. And hey, it is what it is, man. And like I told Sergeant Johnson that day, I was like, "Sir, am I going to get fired?" He goes, "Did you learn anything?" And I said, "Yeah, I got to get off on a different exit." He goes, "That's not what I meant. Maybe you could leave a little earlier." But it was just, again, some of that comedic timing. I'm sure like I said, my academy mates did several push-ups because of comedic timing that I couldn't resist.
Couldn't help yourself. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that you selected Officer of the Year there in Pomona. Can you tell us, was that a specific incident, or was that a lot of different events all coming together?
It was one of the primary things was, a lot of it is community outreach, right? A lot of your job, especially later on in your career, your first half of your career, you're out crushing crime, right? Snatching and grabbing and doing stuff like that. Later on in your career, you're trying to make yourself a little more well-rounded, right? You're like, hey, let's think about some community involvement that we can do. So at the time, we didn't really have any program at our department that outreached youth, and youth meaning kids from roughly 8 years old to 12 years old, which that is the time in a kid's life where they develop that absolute hatred for cops because they fall into this, what they hear at home and what people are saying. So I had heard about a program called Cops for Kids, if you've ever heard of it, right?
I've heard of it.
And we didn't have that at our department, but a guy in, I can't remember his name, a corporal from Anaheim PD had the Cops for Kids program. So myself and Ernie Rios, a guy that worked with, we rolled down to Anaheim, met with this guy, talked about the program, and we're like, dude, we got to do this. We got to put this in because Pomona is a working class Hispanic town, right? That's the majority of our demographic is working class Hispanic. Okay. And therein, there's a lot of calls for service and there's a lot of work in that town. So kids see cops taking Uncle Tony's car, they're impounding it, they're taking, this person to jail, there's giving a ticket to the ice cream man, all this different stuff. So we got to do something to try and engage the youth a little bit.
Right.
So we did that program, brought in that Cops for Kids program, and I instituted that and ran it. Ernie was with me for a little while, and it was very successful, and it's still run today. And you talk about that's a bankroll of public support for your department. I know that it's like school resource officers, right? They always get a bad rap. Like, oh, you're an SRO? Yeah, you're not a real cop, bro. But there's several different aspects to this that it all feeds into the same thing where, you got to work with the community. You have to. Otherwise, you're never going to make it. And then it'll just be a police state like it was in the 80s where it was a free for all. So, but that was the program that I bought in, and that one was very instrumental and good. That's for my second. That's going to be in my second book. All right, that's in part 2.
Excellent. So, well, it sounds to me like you're fully involved in your job and the lifestyle of being a police officer in Pomona. You're looking out for the citizens. You're trying to look out for the agency.
Yeah.
But, as I mentioned at the beginning also that since you've retired, you've written a book, and it's I guess what I want to talk about now is an incident that happened on September 16th, 2015. And keep that date in mind, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be significant as they get into this a little bit. And let me just tell you, we're not going to get into all the details because we'd be here all week talking about the same topic. So, and we want you to buy the book. It's Badge Under Fire again. So take a look at that. It's excellent. I'm not kidding. I started reading it one morning, and I was telling Chad here before we started recording that night my wife's like, "Are you coming to bed?" And I said, "I'm almost finished. I got to find out what happens here at the end." It's that kind of book. And I know I say that about a lot of books, but not all of them are like that. I'll be honest with you. But that's why we're not going to go into all the details, but we're going to hit some high points here. So again, that book is Badge Under Fire. Mm-hmm. If you would there you go, Chad.
Yeah.
What was the event and why have a police presence at that event that night?
Okay. Both excellent questions. Number one, the reason that they have law enforcement at the LA County Fair is because this is not the, county fair in Happy Land, Missouri or whatever. This is East Los Angeles, and it attracts all of the idiots, especially in one particular section, which is the carnival section of the fair, which is all the rides and stuff like that. That's just where all the knuckleheads hang out. They go there. They just go there because there's not a lot else to do, but they just go there to cause problems and create general chaos. So the LA County Fair contracts with Pomona Police Department to provide police presence to back up their security. Okay. Because as you probably know, you go somewhere and the kid with the yellow security jacket, they don't get much respect. Nobody really listens to them, to be honest with you. And you feel bad for them sometimes because they got a truly thankless job. But the cops are there to basically enforce the laws and also enforce the rules of the fairplex, such as behavior and stuff like that. So on this particular night, I wasn't even scheduled to work. This is what's so funny. And the only time I've ever had problems in my career, the half a dozen times that I've ended up in IA or whatever crap that occurred, I've been working for somebody else. Like I bought your shift or I filled in for you or something. And it was just one of those things that I tell my kids now, because I got 3 kids that are cops. I'm like, don't work overtime. The overtime's where all the bad stuff happens. So anyway, on this particular night, I'm going to work a Victor shift, which is a pedestrian shift. Basically, you have a partner and you just walk around the carnival maintaining the peace, if you will. And so I was partnered up with a guy named Prince Hutchinson. I had met Prince. I was out in training doing background investigations when he came through there and got hired, because I didn't particularly do his background, but I was present out there when he was out there coming through and doing all his paperwork and stuff like that. Very nice young man. And I'm like, I'm one of these weirdo dudes that when you work with me, I want to know your story, right? I'm like, wait, I got to check. Like, I can work with Murphy tonight. Hey, I'm going to go work with him, dude. I don't know his story. So I kind of do that. And I know it's probably a penalty for the poor person I work with, but I love to hear your story, man. So the first thing they'll say is when we're walking out of the briefing room, like, hey, Prince, what brought you here? How are you here today? Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that was the reason I picked up that shift. I had already worked that day. I'm like, yeah, it's 5 hours. I'll go work it. So we go through, it's a pretty normal night, a few arrests here, maybe, drunken Publix and stuff like that. So, a call goes out at 10 o'clock. It's the end of the night. It's 10 o'clock. I've been at work for 18 hours now. Prince and I look at each other, man. We're just like, I don't want any problems, man. No problems. Let's just get here and get it done. Call goes out. Officer needs assistance, basically, with an unruly crowd. They made an arrest of 2 individuals. There's now a crowd forming. They just need some backup. Okay, no problem. We go in there and do a little crowd control, push everybody back. Everybody goes their separate way, calm the people down, and we all go home. That's what's supposed to happen. So as we get there, you can see the 2 officers walking the 2 in custodies northbound on Broadway, which is the main little thoroughfare. They're going through the fair. And there's a crowd of probably between 40 to 60 people directly behind them, cat calling and stuff like that, name calling, yelling out, the pigs, blah, all this different stuff. Normal stuff. So we get in there and Prince and I, we just back everybody up. Put your hands high. Get back. Everybody backs off. Except one guy. One guy.
Of course.
This turd right here. right? This guy. So he breezes right by me. I reach out to try and just grab a hold of his arm to kind of just pull him off to the sides. All I want to do is just separate him, right? Because there's nobody between my back and the backs of the officers that are walking the opposite direction. So I'm rear security. Therefore, I can't let anybody get between me and them because they think I have their backs, right? So nobody can get through me. So then he pulls away like this. And I'm like, hey guys, can you step over to the side? And the guy's like, no, man, I'm going up front. So then he starts hightailing, like walking faster. So then I walk faster. I finally get a hold of him, pull him off to the side. I'm telling him, hey, relax. I have no idea who this guy is to you, but just relax. He's going to get a ticket. He's not going to get a ticket. He's going to have no charges. He goes to the drunk tank for 6 hours. They sleep it off and he's going to be free to go. So just relax. So now we're kind of in a little alcove, if you will, below the grandstands. So there's no interior light within this alcove. It's shaded in there. So it's just the neon light from the fair itself. So as I turn him just to check his waistband before I kick him back into the crowd, I'm just going to make one quick cursory search for weapons. That's it. So I just start to go to his waistband like this and boom, he comes back. We both spin around in a big circle like this, and a hand goes right up by my face. So I'm like, whoa. And I thought I was going to get my bell rung, but it just went right by my face. So I have a hold of him on his shirt right here. He then grabs a hold of me. And when you grab on to the cops, that's a different deal because your job as a bad guy is to get away from me. That's what nine times out of 10, that's what usually happens. They don't generally want to mix it up with you. Nowadays, different story. But back then, it was just get away, right? So he grabs a hold of me. So I then think to myself, okay, well, I don't want to punch this guy. I have every right to because this fist just came right by my face. I have every right to. I'm totally clear if I do, but I don't want to because it just looks bad, right? So I rear back and I just take a forearm to his solar plexus, right? Just do a cross check. That's it. And all I want to do is get him away from me because now he's got a hold of me. So I do a front cross check like this. The first one goes, and then he still has a hold of me. You can see me like in the video because there's video of this on Channel 4 News, obviously. So you can see me go forward like this. And then that's what this picture is right here is him pulling me down. And you can see his fist right up at my face. So I do a second cross check. Prince comes in, wraps him up, kind of bear hugs him from behind, spins him around. Some detective comes in from left field with a baton and cracks him in the bottom of his shoe, right? So it makes a loud crack and everybody's, ooh. So it doesn't do any damage because it hits him in the bottom of the shoe. So we spin around, go down on the ground. Kid, he's resistant, not fighting, but he's just resistant. Doesn't want to go down on the ground. So finally, a sergeant comes up, arcs his taser, pulls a cartridge off, arcs the taser. Like, hey, if you don't stop, you're going to get tased. Ultimately gives up. They handcuff him, stand him up. No kicks, no gratuitous punches or anything like that. It was on and it was off, just like that. So he stands up. The first thing he says is, you all hit like bitches.
Yeah.
This is the caliber of young man that you deal with at the LA County Fair, right? No big deal. They go their way. They start walking. We're just continuing to push the crowd back. We ended up writing a small report. He got charged with delay and obstruct officer. I didn't charge him with 69 PC, like assault on an officer. I didn't charge him with that. It was just delay or obstruct. That was all it was. Very low level misdemeanor that never gets filed. So we write our reports that night. Everybody goes home. Think nothing of it because this is something on the radar of uses of force, if you will. This was about a 1. Is a 1. So first of all, there's no injuries. Second of all, nobody got hit with anything because he got hit in the bottom of the shoe, right? So big nothing goes. We end up probably 8 months later, I get a juvenile district attorney subpoena to go testify on this delay and obstruct officer case from this kid at the fair. And my fault, I wrote like a 2-paragraph sup that night. because it was a nothing. And I didn't really put anything into being really detailed. Like if this was a officer involved shooting or something like that, or if we had been in a fight, that would have been a different story. And if I'm charging him with a felony or something like that, then I would have wrote a more detailed report, but I didn't. So when I go to the DA's office, let me back up just a little bit. Prior to the visit with a DA, to prepare for the hearing, I had seen a cell phone video of this interaction, partially of this interaction, right? It never shows the whole thing. It doesn't show it from beginning to end because that's not sexy and that doesn't sell tickets, right? So it only shows when it turns physical. So when I looked at the video in the evidence, it was grainy and it was kind of like this picture almost. You see how it's purposefully kind of grainy like that? That's how the video was that I saw. Okay. So when I go to the DA's office, she looks at it and she goes, it's kind of grainy, but I see what you're saying here. Okay. Everything happened really fast, but you remember what you remember. So, and that's what you testify to. You know, a lot of lay people don't understand that when officers go to trial, right? And you have your police report from that night. You're not allowed to go up there and say on such and such a date at such and such a time, I responded to. You can't do that. You have to testify to what you personally recall in the gray matter between your ears. You can use this to refresh your memory, but you still have to go with what's in your gray matter, right? So that night, when I wrote in my report that night, I could have swore it was his frickin' right hand. Right? Like as I'm sitting here today talking to you, my body tells me it was his right hand. Okay. Well, you look at the video, as sure as day, it's his left hand. I mean, there's no disputing it's your left hand. So when we go to testify, the defense attorney does his job, which is all he's got to do is create that little bit of a doubt. That's all I got to do. That way the case gets dismissed. So there's a whole long thing in Badge Under Fire. This is the really good portion that I really want young cops to read. I mean, that's my target audience is new cops that are just in this job now. You need to read this because this is scripture. And so I end up testifying to what I recall seeing that night. And when you're involved in a use of force, you don't get a 4K video in your brain. You just doesn't work that way, right? You get probably half a dozen snapshots of what you can remember. I can remember wincing my face like this, thinking I'm going to get embarrassed in front of my friends right now. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to get popped in the beezer, and then that not happen. And then the thought of, okay, no punching, cross check. Okay. Then wrapping around on the ground, getting up. And then when you see the video, you'll see as soon as Prince comes in, wraps him up, I let go of the guy and you see me turn around like this because I thought there was more guys coming, like more bad guys coming, like this was going to be a full on Donnybrook, which in our experience in Pomona, that happens all the time because these cowards will never fight you one-on-one. They'll do it in groups of 5 or 10. So you can see that obviously that's my thought process at that time that night. So fast forward back to that trial, I testified to what I recall. The defense attorney's able to say, hey, well, obviously it's his left hand. So were you lying then or are you lying now? And I'm not lying either time. My attorney made a very good statement to me that I carried with me for the rest of my days. Your perception drives your memory. What you perceive is what drives your memory, right? Like you had a best friend in high school. He had a red 66 Mustang. Freaking nice, right? You end up coming to the 20-year reunion with him. Hey, Steve, what happened to that Mustang, that red Mustang? He goes, or phone a red Mustang. It was blue, but it wasn't red. Dude, I could have swore it was freaking red, dude. So are you lying about that? Or is it just what your perception was? It's just, there is so many articles that I'm sure you've read about and studies that have done that your perception versus the reality of what occurred. We're all humans. And the four of us can be sitting here watching the same thing occur and we'll all have different recollections and you absorb different things from it. So
yes.
Anyway, that was that. He ended up getting it kicked at the state 148 trial against the juvenile, got kicked. And I left that day thinking, okay, well, I don't care. I mean, I'm not personally invested in this, so it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Let me ask you, back during that time, because you did fill out a use of force report, did Internal Affairs take a look at it? And if they did, what was the outcome?
Yes, there was 2 different investigations that were completed. Our department, obviously, every department has an internal affairs unit. And just as a little asterisk to this, the only reason that this was a use of force investigation is because of that baton that came in from left field, right? If it had just been me pushing him and him pushing me, then that's not a use of force. Okay. A use of force is some type of weapon that's used, right? And, contact with the body. All right. So that was the only reason the use of force was created. So yes, they did do a use of force, did internal affairs investigation, probably 2 months after the incident occurred in 2015. I went to my IA interview, and at that time, I didn't even take an attorney with me. When I went to IA, and I'm one of those guys that, if you're the subject of an internal affairs investigation, you take an attorney, period. You pay for the legal protection, take it. So at the time, our internal affairs was being run by a guy that I trusted as a good investigator, somebody that doesn't get led by emotion, doesn't get led by the politics of the agency, right? Because we all know that's a big determining factor on whether or not stuff gets sustained, is the political climate within your agency. Okay.
Right.
And because people have marching orders. So anyway, this particular internal affairs sergeant was Mike Niederbaumer. And Mike and I had never really worked together, but he had he was known in the department to be a very by the book guy and just very straightforward. He never sugarcoated anything. The facts were the facts, and that's what we deal with, is facts. So I didn't even take an attorney, went in there. I was probably in there 2, maybe 3 hours. We went over the whole thing. The internal affairs investigation gets completed probably within 6-8 months. It makes the rounds upstairs. It spends a month on each, this sergeant's desk, then this lieutenant's desk, then this captain's desk, this deputy chief desk. Finally gets to the chief, 6 months later, right? So right as it's at the chief's desk, guess what happens? We get notified that the FBI is conducting an investigation for civil rights violation, right? Lying on a police report and all this magical, crazy stuff. So my IA investigation gets told, right? Meaning that the investigation is paused while an outside agency is conducting an investigation. So it never got completely signed off. It was all the way up through the deputy chief. They had all said, okay, everything comes back within policy, blah, blah, blah. So it had been investigated by the agency and determined to be within policy. The entire experience. They also do an administrative insight, which also came back above board, which is that's around the force that was used involved in, or the force that was used in the case in question. And that came back above board. Everything was within policy, no problems. So then all of a sudden this thing comes out of outer space. This FBI investigation comes in. So, and that's when everything just unfortunately
went sideways.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, the 2 guys that were taken into custody originally, were they related? And the juvenile that you had to tussle with, was he related to him?
See, yes, excellent point. Thanks for asking that. The father, it's the father and the uncle of the suspect that I encountered, the juvenile that I encountered. That's his father and his uncle. Okay. And both fine, upstanding citizens. Okay. Yeah, right. No, the complete turds. Okay.
Yeah.
And what had originally, and I found this out later, was what caused this whole thing to happen was the father and the uncle were walking from the southern portion of the fair. It's 10 p.m. The lights come on. The announcement comes out. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Malloy County Fair is closed for the day. Come back and see us tomorrow. Blah, 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 blah. As they're walking out, they pass a beer vendor on Budweiser Corner there, pass a beer vendor, and says, "Hey, I'm just get a beer." So he walks up there. The girl's like, "I'm sorry, we're closed." So he's like, he jumps the little picket fence thing, goes back there, and starts to try and pour himself a beer. And the girl at the stand waves over to security. Security comes over. He's a complete belligerent jerk to security. Blah, just F this, F you, blah, 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 blah. I do what I want, XYZ. And then they wave over the cops. So Officer Dorn and Officer Dossie come over, and they encounter these two. And the father says, I was at Arcadia Methodist when they brought Diamond in. You're going to end up like him, man.
Ooh.
So Diamond. Wow. Okay. We know that's Sean Diamond. That's a very good friend of ours, a teammate on our SWAT team that got killed serving a search warrant. And this jerk, for lack of a nicer term, I guess, that's a nice way of putting it, is saying, you're all going to end up like him, the pigs, all this other crap. But as cops, you got to have a thick skin, and we do. And they didn't pull out their batons and club them over the head. They're just like, okay, well, now you've demonstrated that you can't handle yourself in public when you're drinking alcohol, so we're going to go babysit you for 6 hours, which is what they did. So that was the genesis of this whole thing. And I didn't know, when I put my hands on this young man, I didn't know that he was the son of the guy that's in custody. He just looks like some knucklehead at the fair who's not listening, which, what's the saying? Those are 12 for 10 cents, or dime a dozen, whatever you want to call it. So
from that point, when you heard about the FBI's interest until roughly 2 years later, when you got indicted, you got that phone call from your attorney. Did they bring you in for questioning or anything like that?
Yeah, this is another, man, this is good. So I get well, first of all, when the FBI thing came down, that FBI snooping around at the station, because it's like days of our lives, right? That's part of the drama of working in a police department. It's the same as working at JCPenney's or whatever. It's the same, right? So the drama was that they wanted to get a consent decree. This was the rumor that was going around. I wasn't even on the radar at this point when we heard about the FBI. So the rumor was they're trying to get a consent decree so they can come in and run our department, right? So as things go on, probably 3, 4, 5, 6 months, they start sending out notices to interview with the FBI and appear before a grand jury, right? So they interviewed, or the grand jury talked to 40 different people that were involved in the call that night. Not involved in the call, just worked. So it's the dispatcher, it's the lieutenant, it's all the cops that were on squad that night at the fair. So they call in all these people. And now I get little tidbits from people coming back like, hey, Chad, man, they were talking to us about that night at the fair. That guy, remember? Yeah. That was on news. Yeah. Okay. So, well, oh, wow. All right. I guess it may be about me. Then voila. Within a week or two after these interviews start happening, I get notification that I am now the subject of an FBI investigation, and the FBI would like to talk to me. So I tell my IA sergeant, I'm like, okay, what's the phone number? I'll call him. I'll go down, talk to the grand jury, I guess. Okay. All right. Maybe you should call an attorney. Okay. So, I called down to Legal Defense Fund, through PORAC there in California, and, Michael Schwartz, he had represented me on a couple of IAs I had years prior. And I was involved in a off-duty shooting at home, home invasion thing. So, he helped represent me on that. So I got assigned him. Immediately comfortable with Michael. He's the best in the business on the West Coast. And so I call Michael. Hey, it's Chad, man. Hey, how you doing? Hey, long time no see. La, 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 la. Yeah, the FBI and the FBI wants to talk to me. Hard stop, Chad. Do not answer the phone. Do not talk to another soul until I get there. I'm on my way from LA. I'll be there in a couple hours. Do not talk to anybody until I get there. Right. Dang. Okay. Again, I'm at like a 1.5 or a 2 on the worried scale, because this is nothing. I mean, it's a joke. So he finally gets out there. He closes the door. We sit down, and Michael's a very no nonsense guy. And he's kind of, I used to call him black licorice because it's like what you see is what you get with this guy. Like you bite into that piece of black licorice, you're like, oh man, this is not going to be good. And he always says, I will under promise and I will under promise and over deliver. I will never over promise with you. I'll give it to you straight. All right, cool. Sits down. He says, Chad, we do not talk to the feds. We do not talk to the FBI because it's a different game. You're not used to the federal game, okay? Because let me tell you something. If you were to go down and sit in front of the FBI and have an interview, you're not entitled to legal representation, meaning I can't go with you. Like, what do you mean? I don't get to have an attorney present when I'm being questioned by the cops? He goes, no, not at the federal level. The FBI, you don't get that. It's like, are you kidding? And he goes, and number two, that'll blow your mind. They do not video or audio record, and they do not allow you to video or an audio record. So I'm like, I go in there with no attorney, no video, and no audio. Wow. And he goes, do you know why they do that? No, to control the narrative. Because there's 3 agents that sit in a room during an interview with the subject of an investigation, right? They have one person that asks the questions, one person that takes the notes, and one person that makes the report from the questions that person asked. Okay. And the reason they do that is for this plausible deniability, right? Because, I wrote these are your note pay. I guess I couldn't read your notes very well, Agent 2. So I just forgot to put that sentence in there. It's exculpatory in nature. I forgot it, And it's just, I make light of it and I joke about it, but I do that because I'm so pissed that you have to laugh and make a joke about it, or otherwise you just walk around with your fist in the air all the time. And that's no way to live. So anyway, but it just blew my mind about that. So Michael was like, we're going to respectfully decline. And we'll go from there. And that was, I never went and talked to the FBI or the grand jury. And they did that investigation. That was 1.5 years. Mind you, the entire time they're doing this investigation, I am at work. I'm still working. I have not been relieved of duty. Even when they notified me, they notified myself and my agency that I was the subject of it. I was not relieved of duty. So does that that doesn't make sense. Usually if the FBI notifies your agency and says, we're looking at Steve for a couple of things here, some pretty good felonies here, so you might want to take him off the job. That never occurred. You know why? Because this was a nothing case. This was nothing. There was nothing here. And so I stayed at work the entire time until the day of that phone call, which was that was 2017. So 2 years. Yeah. October of 2017.
Did you get a grand jury subpoena?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Grand jury want to talk to me. But again, when you go into a grand jury, you're not entitled to legal representation. And that is, Steve, I don't understand how in 21st century America, how is that legal? If I arrested somebody for shoplifting at Walmart, right? Walmart calls me, I got in custody over here, stealing pencils, right? I end up contacting this suspect. I have to read you Miranda rights, right? I have to then audio and video record my interview with you on body cam, right? And I have to advise you, if you want an attorney before and during any questioning, you can have one. But the feds don't have to do that?
No, that's right. I was a cop for 12 years before I became a Fed, and it was, not only were we doing everything you said, but you're going in for depositions under oath and all that stuff. And then you go to the feds and it's like, we don't have to do what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it made our job a lot easier, but.
Could you imagine? Yeah. Oh, those things called your rights.
That's for people who do not have questionable integrity.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And based on what I read in your book, that's not what I read about the investigating agents in this. Mm-hmm. So you, and without going into a lot of detail, the first grand jury had all those witnesses, and what was their determination?
Crazy part of that was, and we found this out after the trial, like later on down the road. I didn't know any of this information. And so the first grand jury is impaneled by the DOJ, right? DOJ and FBI impanel a grand jury. Grand jury comes and sits. They're the ones that sent out 40 subpoenas. So they interviewed 39 or 40 people. They reviewed hundreds of pages of documents. Like all of my testimony from the state trial with the young man that was dismissed, right? They reviewed all of that and they came back, no indictment.
Okay.
No indictment, right? So that should be game over, right? That should be like, hey, buddy, thanks for playing. Everybody go their separate ways. Have a great day. No, DOJ goes, that's interesting. Well, we'll just impanel another grand jury. Oh, okay. So they impanel a second grand jury, but let's not waste time with witnesses and evidence and facts. Let's just have an agent go in there and she can just basically tell them everything. The new grand jury. So this agent goes in, the investigating FBI agent in my case, goes in to the second grand jury, spends 2 hours in there telling them, well, hey, grand jury, we just had another grand jury in here and 40 people came in and they reviewed all these things, but we're not going to waste your time with all that. I'm just going to tell you what happened because I'm an FBI agent and I'm above reproach. You cannot question me or my integrity or my moral character because the FBI doesn't lie, right? And this is what you and I have been fed since the days of Jack Webb, right? And I was the same way, brother. I sat there on the freaking defendant's chair on the first day of my first trial, still thinking the FBI was the good guys. And my attorney just kind of snickering at me. So anyway, that first grand jury, no indictment. The second grand jury listens to the FBI agent for 2 hours. They deliberate for 20 minutes and return with an indictment.
And what were the charges?
Obviously deprivation of civil rights, which is a big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. Then I want to say lying on a police report. I don't know if I had obstruction. I might have had obstruction to abuse under the color of authority. So there was some big ones in there. So this was a 40-year sentence. We're looking at the low was 25, the high was 50. So this was probably going to be about a 40-year sentence. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Isn't that insane? Yeah.
It's outrageous. I mean, we got murderers out here that aren't getting that much time. Who was indicted besides you?
So my partner, Prince, was my partner that night. And then the internal affairs sergeant that investigated the internal affairs complaint was also indicted. His is he has like 2 or 3 pages in here of his statements. Basically that the FBI came in a nutshell. I'll tell you his story real quick, just in a nutshell. So he gets a phone call from the FBI. FBI says, hey, this is Agent XYZ from a blah, blah, blah office. I'm calling about the Chad Jensen case. I'm going to need, what's going on with that? Our internal affairs sergeant, who is also, I think at the time he was even an attorney. He had gone to like law school and passed the bar. So he is very smart. And he's like, well, is this an investigation? Are you conducting an investigation about one of my officers? No, I just want to know what's going on. Well, I hate to tell you this, but you're not entitled to that information. Now, you give me something from a judge, i.e. a warrant, or a heading that says, hey, we're conducting an official investigation. I will give you everything you need. But absent that, I can't really help you. Oh, okay. So then a little time goes by. They make a house call to his office. Come out there. These 2 agents walk in, obviously surreptitiously recording our internal affairs investigator, right? Comes in, tells him, hey, we're here from this Chad Jensen thing. We're going to need copies of his personnel file and all of his internal affairs records, And so Sarge goes, hey, okay, that's fine. I just need that. I just need that warrant or something from a judge that says that you're entitled to that. And I will photocopy it myself and put it in 3-ring binders, collated everything. I'll give it all to you, but I need to have that. She says, well, we've never had this problem before. We're the FBI. And he goes, well, I'm sorry, but you're not entitled to that without one of those documents, either something that says it's an investigation or a warrant, one of the two. Because contrary to common belief out here in the public arena, you and I as police officers, we have rights too. So, and God bless Mike for being that way. But obviously they were upset. So as they turn and walk out the door, she says, this is not going to end well for you.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that insane? Insane. So they ended up saying that he obstructed justice, blah, 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 and that he lied to the mother of the juvenile when she called in to make a complaint. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't know the 1, 2, 3s of the exact occurrence of how things went down, but that's the meat and potatoes of what happened is that he pissed off the FBI. So
during this time after the indictments came out, obviously you were put on administrative leave. And as you'll read the book, everybody's put on administrative leave with pay, as well as Prince and the sergeant.
Right.
And their benefits continued. But during that time until trial, did they try to flip one of you guys, get you to testify against each other?
Yeah, this was particularly nasty. Just so disgusting. The feds, it's just, they leave such a bad taste in your mouth. And again, I'm generalizing it when I say that, but of course, there's good FBI agents out there. I watched, you know how it is. So, but these were particularly poor human beings. So they, right before the first trial, probably I think a week or two before the first trial, they called Prince and Prince's attorney, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to present an offer to Prince." They go in, Prince sits down, the attorney, FBI says, "Hey, we got a deal for you. You're looking at 40, possibly 50 years in prison, but we're willing to offer you 18 months probation. All you need to do is sign this report that we have here, or this statement that we have that says that Chad Jensen coerced you into fibbing on your report, and that Jensen had lost control that night, and he was trying to teach a punk kid a lesson and all this other crazy stuff." And Prince looks at it, and to his credit, says, "This is not what happened."
Right.
Well, this is a one-time deal. We will not offer this deal again. And think about the moral fiber that it takes for somebody like Prince. Now, Prince didn't know me. Yeah, I mean, we had met each other and stuff like that, and we had giggles here and there and stuff like that, but he didn't know. For him to say, "No, I'll go to trial with this guy. I'll look at 40 years in prison," but that's not what happened. And I've said that before, like other podcasts I've been on, is that this is the strongest moral character I've ever seen in another human being on this planet is Prince Hutchinson. He's a fantastic human being. So, anyway, he said, "No, pound sand. I'm not taking the deal." So,
well, God bless him for doing the right thing.
Yes,
that's called integrity.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We've been going a little while here, but this is, and I'm not going to go through the arrest process because that's horrific, the way you were treated. And folks, you need to read that part because that is not the way things should have happened. But I do want to ask, 2 days before your trial started, what was your attorney delivered?
Yeah. So we preparing for trial for probably a month before the trial was supposed to start. And this is now November of 2018. October, November of 2018, right, is when our first trial is scheduled to begin. So we prepared for 3, 4, 5 months prior to that. We're down in the office all the time. And so then the Friday before trial starts on Monday. On that Friday prior, we get dumped between 30 and 40,000 pages of discovery. That's insane. So they adhered to the rules of evidence, right? Meaning that as a prosecutor, if you have exculpatory evidence or anything like that, you have to provide it to the defense. It's the same. Defense has to provide it. This is all why we live in the United States of America, right? So they said, "Oh, well, we provided it to you, but inside of 40,000 pages of complete nonsense." I mean, like, they had every alcohol sale receipt from everybody that bought alcohol at the fair that day, like background investigations of every person that worked that night at the fair. It just was complete nonsense. Credit card statements from everybody that was at the fair that bought alcohol that night, their credit card statement in there. It's just utter nonsense. And within that was 2 documents that were statements that we'll get into later.
Yep, absolutely. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail on the trials themselves, but just if you would give us a Reader's Digest version of this wonderful federal judge that you had for your trials.
Yeah, he was something else, man. When you sit down, I'd never been to federal court. I'd never seen how federal court operates, but it is completely different from state court. Everything's completely different. The rules and everything are totally different. So when we sat down, I remember we're arguing with the judge, or my attorneys are arguing with the judge about the rule of completeness, okay, which was a big sticker because the FBI and the DOJ had taken snippets of my state testimony and redacted hundreds of pages of testimony where I explained what I saw that night, explained what I was going through that night and everything, the 1, 2, 3s, the mechanics of everything. They redacted all that, right? Just to create a narrative, right? We can color anything a certain direction and create a narrative. And that's exactly what they did. So we were arguing, well, if you're bringing in a redacted version of this report, we should be able to bring in the full version, right? Because we want to provide that to the jury. I mean, you as a jury, you are the trier of truth, meaning that you hold in your hands my freedom and that of my partners. So you need to have all the facts here. Well, the judge goes, well, I see it differently. If he wants the facts, he wants the second half of the report, he can come up there and testify about it. Excuse me, but don't we have this thing called the frickin' Bill of Rights that says that I'm not required to come in and testify on my own behalf? And the judge just was horrible. I mean, when you looked at him, he had already made up his decision. And my attorney was like, you know what? They always say that the federal judge is a third arm of the prosecution. That is a very true statement. And he made no qualms about it. Like later on, we got the sidebars, like when the attorneys would go up on sidebar and talk with the judge. We ended up getting the transcripts of those sidebars. And it is absolutely disgusting that the personal nature in which this judge acted. It was not about facts. It wasn't about evidence. It was all about theater and emotion. That's all it was. And it is what it is. By the grace of God, I had a guardian angel in my first trial that literally saved my life. So,
yeah. So if you would just tell us that at the end of the trial, it goes to the jury, and ladies and gentlemen, please read this book because it's this guardian angel he's talking about is very instrumental in this. It's just that we're running out of time here. I don't want to waste Chad's time when you can read the book.
Yeah.
But it goes to the jury, and they come back with what happened. Well, you tell me what happened.
Right. So this first trial, right? We had done the first trial. This is October, November, 2018. It goes to the trial real quick. Just there's a big emotional point in my life when the defense is going to rest, right? Right before the defense rests, we call for a break. We go back to the conference room in the back. That's when my attorney looks me dead in the eye and he says, Chad, this is the point where you have to decide whether you want to testify or whether we're going to rest. So I'm like, on the first trial, I'm like, no, this is a joke. They have nothing. I don't need to testify. I don't need to do anything. Let it roll. Thinking, because again, my threat level was like a 3 or a 2 when the jury got it. Okay. So we're like, okay, the jury goes, they deliberate. I want to say it's maybe a day and a half. They deliberate, maybe 2 days. They ended up coming back into the room. Everybody stand up. They come in, they sit down. And everything's kind of relaxed, man. It's not super tense on this first trial. And then they give the judge a thing. Judge flips through it, hands it back to the clerk, and they read the verdict. We, the jury, blah, blah, blah. All right, it's a hung jury. Hung jury on the first case. Hung jury. We can't come to a conclusion. They've tried. They're hopelessly deadlocked. So then they go, okay, what was the count? What was the breakdown, the vote? It was 11-1. Oh, we're like, there was one cop hater on that jury. We're thinking, yeah. And then the prosecutor says, well, which way was it leaning? And it was 11-1 for guilty. And, all this freaking blood drains out of your body. It's pooling in your legs. And it is just absolute Craziness. That's right up there with that phone call from Michael. That was right there. And of course the DOJ. So, we're going to immediately refile, Your Honor, blah, 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 blah. And we will be back. So, and then,
unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And,
when I read that, when they polled the jury and came up that 11-1 for guilty, I about dropped the book.
Yes. Oh, we could not believe it because we were playing defense. And we were resting just on the facts of the case. And when we got to the second trial, that's when we switched up and they said, we got to start playing offense here because we can't let the FBI and the DOJ get away with these lies anymore and let them just play the little cherry picking game that they play. So. But yeah.
Now, that one comment on that judge there, by him making that ruling where they can redact and only show you bits and pieces of your report, that would be a slap into the face of the jurors because he's saying they're not smart enough to read this document and make up their own mind.
100%, man. That's, again, I go really in depth on that in the second trial. That point that you just made was one of the very big things back in the jury room with the second jury.
Yeah. So it's ladies and gentlemen, Chad here has agreed to come back tomorrow for part 2. I can't wait for you to hear what's going to happen in the second trial here. So, and this is where he mentioned a couple of documents that were found in that 30 to 40,000 page of discovery material that could have prevented this whole thing. But just you got to come back tomorrow. That's the teaser to get you to come back, right? So, Chad, thank you very much for your time today, brother. Again, I apologize that you've had to go through some of this as a law enforcement professional. Nobody should. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not condemning the entire Federal Bureau of Investigation. There were agents in DEA that I didn't get along with, and every agency has them. It's just in Chad's case, there was 2 people who absolutely should go find another career. They've got no business having that much authority and that much power and control over someone's life that they're allowed to lie under oath and walk away and still carry a badge and a gun. That's not one of the professionals that I've ever worked with. Okay. I've done pretty good about not going off on tangents. I'm shocked because
I talk too much. It's probably my fault.
Well, you can see me as we're recording this and you see me wiggling in my chair. It's kind of hard to bite my tongue sometimes, but anyway, thank you very much, Chad. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for continuing to support the show here. If you're listening to this on audio and you haven't checked us out on YouTube yet, do me a favor, go over to YouTube, type in Game of Crimes podcast in the search bar, click on the subscribe button, check out some of the episodes, like the ones that you like, and then send me your comments. I like to hear from you. I even read the bad ones. I really do. All right. So come on back tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourself. Be safe. God bless.